So how exactly do you all see the potential adoption and integration of this gene therapy into the IRD space? And do you think there's any possibility for it to become the next standard of care for this patient population? Thank you.
And yeah, so I hope so. I recognize the limitations. So we are dealing with infrequent diseases. But I always think of each one of these kind of experiments. I often tell patients these are experiments, and that's what they are, as experiments that have very valuable lessons for other diseases. So every success or every setback that we have in the trials should shape the way we do things in the future. And if anything, the field is moving at a speed that at least makes me a little bit uncomfortable, if anything. I'm hoping that that speed would, remain reasonable, but remain with a kind of a vector direction to end up in the clinic at some point. We would have failed the patients if all of this, stays in the clinical trial space, and that's one of my main concerns. There has to be a shift, I think, in the pharma community. There have to be a shift in thinking in the regulatory bodies to accept this as the next generation of treatment, accepting also that every patient is not the same, accepting that every treatment is not the same. So the same way that we accept, I don't know, the antibiotics should not be effective in 100% of the patients, that should be the thought also in this type of situation. And if we kind of change our mindset, I think that would increase the likelihood that these therapies are going to be accepted as the next standard of care, hopefully. As it happened with Lusterna, it should not stay there. And there are now many more examples. They had seen a example with Gucci 2D, the CEP290 treatment that just happened, the X-linked retinal species. So there are many examples now of, without a question, treatment efficacy that are not by any means universal, but that should be enough to move the field into accepting these technologies as a standard of care for our patients.
I would echo that from a surgical perspective and from an IRD specialist having treated these patients surgically. I think we have learned that subretinal delivery for inherited retinal disease is really the standard of care, and it's tried and true at this point. The safety profile and the efficacy profile, as Tomas gave a few examples, has not only been shown with an FDA approval in 2017 for Luxturna, but now with multiple phase 1/2 trials. The Atsena Therapeutics X-linked retinoschisis with a subretinal approach, the Atsena Therapeutics LCA1 trial, the Gucci 2T that Tomas mentioned, with a subretinal approach, our PGR trials on a number of different companies, X-linked RP, hoping to be moving in a direction towards an FDA approval. We shall see in the near future. But again, positive efficacy data from multiple different programs in the IRD space using subretinal injection. So I would argue, and when I talk to my patients about this, I don't necessarily use the word novel anymore when I talk about gene therapy. It's exciting, but I would think at this point I don't necessarily use the word novel. I use the word, I explain that this is how we deliver gene therapy to patients, and that we have a new standard of care of genetic testing to identify the genotype, and we have a new standard of care of how we deliver genetic therapy to patients, which is at this point subretinal for inherited retinal disease. And I think that patients are becoming more and more aware of this. So it's an exciting time. And I do think that that this is moving in a very positive direction. I'm excited to be a part of it.